can never have too much love.
No.
We're across the street from the Marcus Autism Center.
Yeah, exactly. I want to put some names on that.
Yes, good.
Alright, so we are here with Dr. Judy. And for those of you who do not know who she is, you're about to find out. So please tell us who you are.
I'm Dr. Judy Mikovits. I am a career cancer and HIV/AIDS research scientist. I made drugs for 22 years at the National Cancer Institute to cure disease, and I learned of families with autistic kids and myalgic encephalomyelitis, which the CDC dumbed down in another one of their cover-ups and called chronic fatigue syndrome. And I learned of these families in 2006. Bless you. And I learned of these diseases in 2006, and I started investigating whole families with these diseases, and we isolated retroviruses that come from mice. And most people didn't know that all of these mouse viruses and mouse cell lines and mouse debris actually are components of your vaccines. And so we've been, for more than 25 years, we've known the risk of injecting foreign proteins into human beings and the chance of a virus from an animal jumping into a human, and that's exactly what we've seen. And that's exactly what we discovered. So in 2011, it's interesting, the British Medical Journal started this when my fellow HIV/AIDS scientists said the most likely way XMRVs, the mouse-related viruses, were entered into humans was through vaccines. And 6 months later, my career is destroyed. I'm fired when I refuse to cover up the data, when I refuse to deny the data. They said, all you have to do is make it all up and you have your life back.
All right, so just,
say you made it all up.
All right, so you're an amazing person and everybody literally loves you.
Yeah, thank
you. So you need to know that.
Uh-huh.
All right, so who asked you to manipulate data?
The highest levels of the federal government, Tony Fauci, Ian Lipkin, let's see, who else? You name it. They didn't ask me to, they threatened me.
And just to remind everyone, Ian Lipkin, if I am correct, is one of the people that is responsible for us being thrown out of Tribeca.
Correct.
Lipkin.
Well, he likes to credit himself with convincing Robert De Niro.
Right,
correct.
he advised the so-called people at Tribeca that anyway, moving on.
Right. Well, he was Francis Collins, the head of the NIH. Was the one who said a replication study had to be done. He ordered Tony Fauci, who is the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. This is an infectious disease, folks, and it spreads, and we learned the viruses spread through the air. But they're injecting them and they're bypassing your immunity. Just because you get infected doesn't mean you have to get sick. But when they bypass your immune system and when they cripple your immune system from the day you're born, hepatitis B is a pararetrovirus. It's a retrovirus. It has reverse transcriptase, the enzyme. And we're mandating and injecting that into day-old infants. We've destroyed their immune system. We've destroyed their methylation system forever. So the highest levels of the federal government. So we're here at the CDC protesting today, and we've been here for the last few years, and the CDC was part of that cover-up. But in our book, Plague, Ken Lively and I tell the story of when we uncovered this, and one of the chapters is called the July 22nd Invitation-Only Meeting. July 22nd, 2009, 4 months before our paper was published, we went and showed them all of the data. And I mean them, every level of the government, the FDA, the CDC. Doug Lowy told us, he's the guy that holds the patent, by the way, for Gardasil, one of those who holds the patent. So Doug Lowy is now the head of the NCAA. We'll take care of the media for you. We'll take care of the media. So they all wanted the credit. This rare disease. And John Coffin wrote an article that accompanied our paper in Science, said, one new virus, how many old diseases? And what it turned out to be is how many new viruses and how many new diseases have we created in our laboratory. So that's what the studies found as we did them over the next 2 years. So in 2011, you know, the scientific literature community led by Tony Fauci and Ian Lipkin decided to make it go away. And I'll show you tomorrow at a talk, I have an email from Tony Fauci. We were supposed to be participating legally, you know, in this replication study to show if we could replicate our own work given blinded samples, as if we somehow did this on purpose and contaminated the samples. So Tony Fauci said, sure, she can work on the Lipkin study, but if she, on the replication study, and they called it the Lipkin study, but if she steps 1 foot on NIH in a laboratory, she'll be arrested. Really? How can I do a study if I can't step in a lab and I'm a scientist? But they forced our names on those papers, and they jailed me. They jailed me 1 day after he wrote that email.
So how long were you in jail for?
5 days. Not a hearing, not a crime.
And describe in detail what happened to you. You were arrested?
Yes, they came to our house. They jumped out of the bushes. They tricked my husband into opening the door. My house was surrounded. I mean, my neighbors were like,
Who's
what?
they tricked? Who are we talking about?
The Ventura County Police.
All right.
So the Ventura County Police were, it was all led by Harry Reid and Harvey Whittemore. So Harry Reid was the Senate Majority Leader and obviously the senator from Nevada at this time. So what most people don't really realize is the Senate Majority Leader is in control of the Health and Human Services, HHS.
So they come to your door.
Yeah,
what happens?
they knock on my door. They come to the door and they say, "Do you have the notebooks?" And I'm like, "I don't have anything." "Do you own a computer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I own a computer. It's my computer. I have a receipt for it." And they said, you know, maybe you ought to tell us your side of the story, how you stole all the data. Well, I didn't steal anything. I don't need to steal data. I know the data. I know my brain. I didn't take anything. And so they said, step out here. They put handcuffs on
So
me.
you were handcuffed?
I was handcuffed, foot cuffs. I was
Foot
drugged
cuffs
out. I had
as
no flip flops on. Well, that's what the book we wrote, plaguethebook.com is the website, and the book we wrote talks about my arrest. And it talks about the 5 days in jail. It talks about what I endured. Not one hearing. Not one hearing. 5 years later.
Which
have
jail
I
did
ever
they take
had?
you to?
Ventura County Jail. It's called the Todd Road Facility. And they held me there.
I know we're going to read your book. I haven't read your book. I'd love to read your book.
I'll give you one.
I cannot wait. I want to read about what happened, so I'm going to do that. But just briefly, what is it like in jail?
Well, I mean, it's the most humiliating experience. I mean, body cavity searches every day. I was treated, you know, like a common piece of shit. You know, it's hard to even describe. You know how you were brutal. You're thrown into a back of a van. So we all know about, you know, Black Lives Matter and shooting people. Well, here's a 53-year-old woman who's not done anything wrong. You know, a ticket or two in your life, and sometimes I cuss at people. That's probably not right. But at any rate, you know, they take you out of our house. There's not a shred of evidence. Not a shred of evidence of wrongdoing, of unethical behavior in my 35-year career, nothing. And to this day, I've not had a single hearing, not a single chance to tell my story. And that's why Kent Heckenlively, who was in one of my
Tell
family,
us what your book is called.
it's called Plague.
Plague,
And you can find it at Amazon. You can find it anywhere. It's a Skyhorse book. It's Kent Heckenlively and myself. And basically, Kent interviewed me over 2 years. He said, tell me what day 1 in jail was like. Tell me what day 2 in jail was like. Tell me about the Lipkin study. Tell me about the invitation-only meeting. Tell me about Harvey Alter and the long, hot replication summer. I mean, this isn't a science book. This is a suspense thriller. And this goes through, you know, even to the point where in the last chapter, we actually predicted what Ian Lipkin to do. He interviewed Kent Heckenlively, interviewed Ian Lipkin. He interviewed everyone. Every word of the story is referenced. That Tony Fauci email is in the book. every comment, everything. We can prove this, and yet nobody says a word. No media, no nothing. Nobody covers it at all. We can prove this. It's a plague of corruption and a plague of disease. It's all of the diseases that of our time, the chronic diseases. We've all got acquired immune deficiencies, and they just keep injecting us.
A slightly random question here, and you may not be able to answer this, but what do you think is causing the rise in breast cancer?
Retroviruses that come out of the laboratories and the injections and the crippling of our immune system by GMOs, by food. See, it's coming, animals have retroviruses. So we're drinking milk where the animals are treated with hormones, and they're eating GMOs, and these vectors are disrupting their endogenous system, and they're expressing these, and we're drinking and eating them, and we're injecting them into. So there's a virus called mouse mammary tumor virus, and it's a mouse model of breast cancer that we've studied since I got into the lab in the early 80s. Well, Andy Mason in the 90s discovered a virus associated with breast cancer and liver disease, liver cancer called, and he called the virus HBRV, human beta retrovirus. But what he was smart enough not to call it was mouse mammary tumor virus related virus. The idiots that discovered ours, Silverman and DeRisi, called it xenotropic murine leukemia virus related virus. So these viruses in animals cause and are the models for these various diseases. So the XMRVs, the murine leukemia viruses, are mouse models of Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, myalgic encephalomyelitis, and many leukemias and cancers and prostate cancers and breast cancers. So I have no doubt that the vaccines, contaminated vaccines from mouse viruses. So the thing we found in the summer of 2011, and then the we is another investigator named Dottie Gosdar in his laboratory in Texas. They found that the virus is aerosolized. So here's HIV. And you can think of Ebola. And you know how Tony Fauci was out there with the little plane saying you can all go home, you're safe. The only way you can get Ebola is if you touch the body fluids. Well, wait a minute. The people who got infected, they were bleached down every day. They were in gear, and then the CDC changed the definition of aerosolization. So it goes through the air. It goes through the air. So what my co-workers, my lab workers, my friends, they're all dead now, because they were working in what they call a biosafety level 2.
What did they die of?
Various cancers. Colon cancer, breast cancer, liver cancer. My postdoctoral mentor, Dave Dursey, died of liver cancer. My office mate, and the only reason I'm not dead is I worked with HIV. So in the 80s, I didn't want to do a boring colony counting assay, so I said, I'll take the deadly retrovirus. And here I was protected because I was wearing the garb. I worked with Ebola at Fort Detrick in 1995 in full suits. And it's the laboratory viruses. When we teach them how to infect human cells, then they're infecting humans. So that's how we're teaching these viruses how to bypass our immune system, which would normally be able to cover. But when you inject them directly into the lymphatics, now we know the lymphatics go throughout the brain, and we're injecting them throughout the brain. So these ear infections, these sinus infections, everybody's got all these sinus infections. It's because it's the viruses and the pathogens are spreading all the way through the meninges and crippling our world.
So this is a question we get for the vaccine a lot, so I'm going to bounce this one back at you. Are you ever afraid for your safety?
I was while they were hunting me down like an animal before they arrested me. But we had a boat and we escaped, and that's a funny story that didn't end up in the book. Someday I'll tell it. But they surrounded our house, and I called Frank and said to Frank Rossetti, I said, "What do I do?" He said, "You idiot! You have a boat. They can't take you off the water." And we escaped on the boat, and I called one of my friends who was in the harbor, in the Ventura Harbor and Channel Islands Harbor, and I said, "Is anybody on your boat, and is the door unlocked?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Can I stay there a few days?" I said, and I look a lot like her, so we wear these hats. So I put on a hat with her boat on it, and I hid on that boat for the better part of a week. and that was the only time I was ever afraid. But I was so seriously afraid. I told my husband, don't you come anywhere near here. Throw that phone away. You use cash. And in fact, it's interesting because a mom of an injured child in Oregon had given me one of these Go phones and an envelope full of money. She said, don't use a credit. And she gave it to me months earlier, and I kind of just threw it in the drawer. She said, you don't understand. You're going to need this. She gave it to me years before it happened in 2010. And she's probably in that audience right now. But she probably saved my life. Because we had a little boat. We got on that boat. And it was November 9th, 2011. I was arrested on November 18th in jail. But on November 9th, they tried to kill me. And I escaped. They tried to get me to commit suicide. This is how the administration, the Clinton administration, and
How did
others
they
were.
do that?
They make you think you're worthless. They're like, here's the gun. We'll protect you, and then they kill yourself with your own gun. But that's what's in the book. I wouldn't take the gun. I said, no, I've never touched a gun. I'm not touching. So they walk in and they say, oh, she realized that she made up everything, and she was so humiliated that she just killed herself. You know what they did to Jeff Bradstreet? How do you shoot yourself twice in the chest and throw yourself in a river? He didn't kill himself. And so Dr. Bradstreet, I was just, either smart enough or dumb enough never to touch the gun. I said, I'm not touching that. I wouldn't go anywhere
Can you
near
just
it.
go into a little bit more detail with that? So people
It's a whole chapter in the book.
Oh, right, okay. I'm going to watch the book, but just for people that are this is good because people are going to want to get your book. So people walk into your house and ask you to hold a gun?
No, I was going back into Reno, Nevada, and I was staying in my apartment with my student overnight, and then I was leaving town. I knew that I was done in that job and I was getting out of there, and Max is his name, and he's in the book, and he came out and he said, you don't understand. They're following you, and they're following us. They've been. I was in Ireland at the time, in October of 2011, and so he said, he'll kill you, and they scare you, and I knew he would kill me because they're the most powerful people, and we have a little secret they don't want anybody to know, and so that and he said, and he walked into the bedroom and he picked up this gun, and he said, here, use this. Don't leave this apartment tomorrow, and I'll be back. And I said, I'm not touching that gun. You get it out of here. And ultimately they used that gun to destroy his life because he took it onto a university campus to protect himself from getting killed by these people, and they said, "Are you kidding me? You're a 30-year-old or a 29-year-old with a gun on a campus in this climate. Your life's over. So you give her up, you lie, you say she did the whole thing, and we'll let you go." He ultimately escaped to Canada, but, he was the so-called witness in the legal things that enabled them to manipulate the system they were fake warrants, they were phony warrants, but yeah, that's the whole thing, but I wouldn't touch it. But, yes, before I got out of Reno, scared beyond, but, as Kent wrote in the book, when I was in jail, I was safer than I felt in years. I was safe, jail, fine, at least they can't touch me here, and they can body cavity search me, they can kick me around, they can humiliate me, but I don't care if they humiliate me. It doesn't matter to me,
It wasn't a surprise when they came for you?
Oh yeah, I had no idea. They tricked my husband. I had no idea, because I thought we escaped on November 9th, a week earlier, and we didn't do anything, so why are they in my house? And my husband answered the door. I let down my guard, and my husband answered the door. And I said, and what they did was and you'll see this in the book, they said, is Dr. Judy at home? Because what did you say when I came in here? How do you pronounce your name? Nobody knows how to pronounce my name. So my husband wouldn't answer the door. But she said, it's Jamie, I'm a patient. And one of the prominent doctors I'd worked with at the time was Dr. Jamie Deckoff Jones. And she said I could come by any time. And I thought Jamie was in Hawaii. Man, I was literally getting into a shower after a run, and I just put my shirt back on. It was one of those tank tops. I was running on the beach. And I said, that's okay, honey. I'll take care of it. And that's how the book opens. That's the prologue. And I walked by, and I stepped out, and she said, hi, Dr. Judy, recognize me? And I said no, and I tried to shut the door, and she put the foot in it and dropped a tape recorder on the thing. And I said, you get that out of here. It's illegal in California. Get your foot out of my door. You can't come in my house. And then they just kind of stormed the house, walked in, pushed my husband, who was 73 at the time, into a chair, scared the shit out of all of us. Marched me out, shackled hands and feet. No, nothing, no warrant. No warrant. No warrant for a search, no legal anything. A piece of paper with my address on it. Didn't say anything. And yet, to this day, I've never had a single day in court. Never. They took away everything. And in fact, they forced me to file bankruptcy. And I said, I don't need to file bankruptcy. I'll pay my lawyers, and I got a perfect credit score. And they said, you file bankruptcy or you're going back to prison. And this time you're going in Nevada, and you'll never get out. We control there, and you'll never get out. Yeah, Harry Reid controls Nevada. And so I was sobbing, and my bankruptcy lawyer, David Folan, is in the book, and he's still a good friend and a lawyer, and he does everything he can. He's protected me at the FBI since 2012. The FBI of this country knows the entire story and have since 2012, and they won't do one thing about it. They won't investigate. They won't do anything. We've got an FCA that's been held under seal, False Claims Act, whistleblower, held under seal for more than a year and a half, and they do nothing. And it can't say anything when it's under seal. I can't describe what's in the case. I can't show the evidence. So they're going to come out and they're going to say after the election. Oh, we're going to look at it after the election. Oh, when you can't do anything about it because the rest of us will be mandated federally to be injected with mouse viruses. I mean, it's bad.
The name of the book, again,
Plague.
guys, is Plague, and you go to Amazon to get it. These people are hammering to buy your book, so
PlagueTheBook.com.
PlagueTheBook.com. I think we're going to make that number 3 on the essential Vax Christmas list. Number 3. We don't choose these things wisely, but that is where we're going to go. Catherine will be adding that to our list.
Okay.
We say this Christmas spread plague. Because it's a plague of corruption. That's why the title.
So, everybody in this day and age right now, what is your advice to them to stay cancer-free, disease-free? What would your advice to people be?
No vaccines, no GMOs. Basically, that's it. No vaccines. Not now, not ever. Never. Not one. Not as an adult, not as a teenager. Most of what we're seeing now, the Gardasil injury is horrific. That's that guy Doug Lowy in the July 22nd Invitational. You can start following the corruption and how many trillions of dollars they're making. Don't go to the doctor. You want to keep your kids well? Don't go to the doctor. What's a wellness visit? It's a sick place. And so all those kids shedding, all the vaccinated are shedding the viruses and shedding these things and making other people sick. It was the vaccinated that spread the measles epidemic. Oh, big deal. A couple hundred people got measles. We had measles parties. We had chickenpox parties. We developed immunity. I need the t-shirt that said, I'm not vaccinated, and on the back it says, I'm immune. When is the conversation going to be about immunity? If you have to get a booster at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, a child under 3 doesn't have a developed immune system. A child under 3 doesn't have a developed kidney detox system, liver detox system, or gut microbiome. So why are you injecting them? All you can do is harm. All you can do is harm. And somebody in puberty, women in menopause, all you can do is harm. And the elderly. The elderly. They say, you see the commercial, and I don't know what the actor's name is. He's on TV saying, your immune system's getting tired. So why in the world would you want to push the envelope with all these vaccines? Why do you need a DTaP when you're 50 years old? So when you go to your doctor, refuse. I mean, now there are states like California, where I am, where the minute you walk in the doctor's office, if you're already sick, don't vaccinate. Don't, we're going in grocery stores here, save a life, give a life, get a life, it's just horrific. So I don't go anywhere near a doctor. I will not sign up for Obamacare. I say, you give me back the $10 million you stole from me, my life, my human rights, you give me those back and I'll sign up for anything.
So you do not have health insurance?
I do not have health
So
insurance.
if you broke a leg, what would you do?
Find a friend who will treat me.
You're right. You guys, this is how we work in Austin,
Network.
Texas. In Austin, Texas, we do the same thing. We've closed
Right.
ranks. We have a doctor for everything.
I have doctors who will help me. My husband's doctor will
And
help
this
me.
is the way forward. Get into
I
your
pay
communities.
cash. Remember when we used to pay cash? I broke my arm when I was a little kid. I ran over a barbed wire fence and I needed stitches and a tetanus shot. My mom said, should have thought of that. You know, I sat there in that chair until they realized I had passed out because my arm was broken. Because I didn't want to tell my mom because we didn't have $200 to set my arm or whatever it was at the time. So when we go back to paying for our own health care, does anybody realize how much money a pediatrician makes? For getting 63% of his 200 child practice vaccinated? Well, he gets 400 a kid. But when he gets to that 63%, he gets 40,000. So you want to know why they bully you? If you're the last one, remember when they used to give incentives on cars and they give them in groups of 10? And when you were the one getting that last car, you got the best price ever. So, these kids are getting bullied. These doctors get kickbacks.
How can they live with themselves? Please tell me that.
They don't know, just like Rachel in the movie. Moving forward, they don't know what's in them.
I don't believe that
the
for a
studies
second.
aren't published, and they don't. Well, the ones that are,
They know they're hurting our kids because we're taking our kids back.
yeah. Well, but they don't know how they're made. That's why the key is when I did drug development. I know how they're made,
But
just
Dr.
like
Judy,
we heard today.
It's 2 years since this whole William Thompson.
It's
At least
2 years since our book came out.
And your book, there's no excuse in this day and age.
That's right.
With the amount of vaccine injury,
That's
with the
right.
amount of us going back and saying, look at my child, look
Yeah.
what's happened. They know.
They know.
And I am positive, sorry to interject, I'm positive that a great many of those practices, those pediatricians' offices, at least one parent has come forward with either your book or your movie and said, have you seen this?
And
So-
Dr. Suzanne Humphries.
And
That's
Dr.
right.
Susan-
Dr.
Oh,
Suzanne
Dissolving
Humphries. Oh, my
Illusions
gosh.
and Rising from the Dead, her second book, her autobiography. She's fabulous. She describes herd immunity and the fallacy of it. Are you kidding me? She's amazing. Yeah, there are lots of books out there. There's Thimerosal, Bobby Kennedy.
Can we
Jr.
get an island and put you and her and all of us and anyone
Sure.
else that wants to come?
And I can
There's
bring
about-
all the-
There's about 2 million of us.
I can bring all the good doctors, and that's
We
the-
don't need anything else.
There are good doctors there. My husband's doctor. In fact, it's interesting to know the politics behind it because my husband had pneumonia when he was in his 40s, and so he used to go in for a pneumonia and flu shot because he's the susceptible, right? Well, after all this happened to me and I explained it and he understood it, he walked into the doctor's office and he said, no more vaccines ever. And the doctor said, I was waiting for you to say that because the doctors can't say it. So they can't start the conversation. So patients, start the conversation. Walk in there with the CDC table, the excipient list. What that means is all the things in that needle. Walk in there with that needle. Or walk in there with your own needle and I'll fill it with the retroviruses they say don't exist. And we'll walk in there and we'll say, fine, I'll shoot you with this. If you come anywhere near my child, I will shoot you. You will not jab. You will not shoot them. This is what we have to do: is take back our health. And if we have to take it back, at the level of no, you won't come anywhere near it. We have sovereignty, as we heard, over God-given sovereignty over our bodies and over our children. It's render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Not your children are not Caesar's. Your money is fine. They took my money, but they're not taking my health. And my husband's never been healthier, by the way. And my mom, she, moms, they don't listen to kids, And so, we didn't know. And I'd say, yeah, flu's good, Mom. You don't want to get sick. Because I didn't know. We don't work in that. Just like lawyers. When you don't work in vaccine development, you don't know. And it wasn't until all of this happened to me and I looked at it that I knew. So my mom goes in and she gets a flu shot and a pneumonia shot because he bullies her into doing it. She won't do anything. And a year later, she called me and she said, guess what? I just told my doctor I'm an anti-vaxxer and gave him your book. And so she walked in, she got that flu shot, she got that pneumonia shot, she had a pain syndrome, she developed an arrhythmia of the heart, they call it AFib now, you know, and she developed such a severe flu-like illness, she was sick for 6 months. And she walked in and he said, oh, we just discovered you need a booster of that Pneumovax. And she said, oh, you didn't kill me the last time. You know, you won't come anywhere near me. And she just fired that doctor. Fire your doctors. It's all economy. Don't go. Don't go.
Okay, so I truly believe we all do here that we will win this.
Yeah.
But I would like your prediction on how you think this is going to play out and how you think this will end.
I think it will end like HIV/AIDS ended, and that ended well. So when people stand up like Robert De Niro did, like the Vax movie. I mean, remember when we had the AIDS quilt? You know, I remember as a kid, I'm 24 years old, at an AIDS meeting where the patients are throwing condoms full of blood, supposedly it was a red liquid, at us at a baseball game in Montreal. At a meeting in Italy, they're walking around with signs saying scientists are murderers. Maybe that's what we need to do. Not subpoena them, put them in prison. William Thompson should be in prison. So should Ian Lipkin. So should Tony Fauci. How many people have they killed? They should be in federal prison for a long time. And I think it'll end well because we know how to fix it. And we can fix it, folks.
Do you think Dr. William Thompson's a hero or a coward?
He's a coward and a criminal. He needs to be in prison. But I was going to say fuck. Fuck subpoena. Put him in prison. You put me in jail. You put me in jail for what? For refusing to do what he did? Are you kidding me? For refusing to hide something that deserved research? I didn't say I was totally right, but I refused to say I made it up. And I would never do that. And for him to sit there and just cry in his beer and have poor Brian Hooker pursue him, you know, for a decade or more. And so during that time, his son, Stephen, lost his statute of limitations. You know, so his son's case was in vaccine court, and the court came back and said, hey, you know, we had no doubt he was injured, but you picked the wrong vaccine in the statute of limitations. That's what they're doing to us now. If we don't recognize the injury right away, so I teach doctor rash, vaccine injury, gastrointestinal, any eosinophilia, any projectile vomit, vaccine injury. Let's flood that court. Vaccine injury, vaccine. You so much as sneeze, vaccine injury. You know, so that, and it is because that ear infection they get, that upper respiratory infection, it's because their immune system is inappropriately injured when they're too young to mount a defense, and therefore they cannot possibly do anything other than get sick.
Can I ask you? A lot of people find it hard to believe that researchers are all sort of in on this, but there's also like how I've heard it described how the left hand oftentimes doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Can you speak to that?
They aren't all in on this because just like I said, I didn't know. When you read the book, you're going to see I was so naive. I trusted Ian Lipkin. He wouldn't do the wrong thing, and he did the exact same thing. So if you compare what they did with when they reworked the CDC data to make it work, to take away the 5-to-1 risk for the black boys, he did the exact same thing. That study didn't come out until he took all the patients out. He took all the real patients out. And he said in the book, oh, we found 85% of the people with this disease in this group of patients from Northern California had retroviruses, but neither this doctor or I are ever going to go anywhere near that. Why? Not because of science. So you can't do research in human retroviruses anymore. They call them endogenous. It's not endogenous, folks. We don't express our endogenous elements. We don't aberrantly express our entire genome in the wrong cell. That's the environment. That's the injection. That's the aluminum. That's the retrovirus at day 1, HBV. That's the problem. So no scientists don't know because even my mentor and longtime colleague, Frank Rossetti, said, oh, that's ridiculous. and his wife went up and looked at his son's vaccine records, and fortunately for this young man, he was born in 1986. But as you get further and further away from 19, so he got 8 shots. We got 8, now it's 83. Now it's puberty. Now it's 7th grade. Now it's going into college. They're required for everything. And it's the cumulative damage that is the tipping point, the straw that breaks the camel's back. So unless we teach doctors to recognize it, unless we get them to read these books and see this movie, I won't believe anybody like Dr. Sears, like Dr. Ross, would look at the hard facts of the data. Look at the data. Don't massage it with statistics. We never use statistics. I never used statistics in my life. That I isolate retroviruses. I got them in my hand. I know I got them in my hand. I don't need crap ass. Do you know what Ian Lipkin did in our study? It's in the book. The teacup statistics. So Tony Fauci refused to give us the 3rd sample in the study. So what it was they gave us hundreds of blinded samples. You got 2 of each out of the box. If you got 2 out of 2, it was positive. If you got 0 out of 2, it was negative. And then we were supposed to, if you got 1 out of 2, you get the 3rd sample to decide if it's positive or negative. When we got 2 out of 2 out of the gate in multiple different kinds of assays, we in 6% of the U.S. population, 6% across the country, that's 20 million Americans or more. That's what our control population. It didn't associate with the disease because they didn't have the patients in there. But I said, I don't care, still a human infection. They had the most top secret conference call where they had to know your voice before you got on the call and logged in May of this year when they were unblinding the study. And when they unblinded it and they found out how big the incidence really was and how much of our country is at risk of cancer, chronic Lyme, chronic fatigue, autism, Parkinson's, everything you can think of on the list I'll show you tomorrow associated with retroviruses. Tony Fauci said they don't get the 3rd sample. This is over. We're done. Really? Science is settled. We're not wasting any more taxpayer money. And yet they've made up this Zika thing. And then right after that, they made up the Ebola thing. And kill a few people and scare. It's this fear tactic thing. It's just incredible. So I don't believe, the reason I'm still educating, so my talks aren't usually political, they're scientific. And when I show an audience that all of these diseases are in fact acquired immune deficiencies, and these environmental toxins are causing them, and in the most susceptible in people, like the blacks in that study, it's a perfect storm. Like puberty, like before 3, like an old lady, like an old menopausal woman, and that's when, or somebody who's already sick. And I mean, more of the cases we work with in vaccine court are older people getting hurt because they walk into their doctor because they've got a gastrointestinal infection, some kind of diarrhea, whatever going on. They go to the doctor and they say, "Oh, it's time for your shots." And on the way out the door, they destroy their lives. Can't even tell you how sad these stories are. I'll put the names on the bus. They're not kids, but it's just...
The names on the bus are not only kids, so
good.
Thank you.
Good. Well, we're going to get some more. I got lots and lots and lots of names of the vaccine injured. And so we lose these populations because, like the little boys, the people with myalgic encephalomyelitis, they've lost their lives. They're in bed. I saw some of the worst things I've ever seen. People where they're in a dark room, they're in a soundproof room because the slightest little sound will blow their brain. The eye sensitivity, the ear sensitivity. One of our grandchildren has that, and he's 4 years old. And, his mom doesn't believe us. And she said, "We're not talking about vaccines or religion in this house." And it's like, okay. and that's our false god, is these doctors.
Did you say one of your grandchildren?
Yeah, my husband's grandchildren. I have 2 grandsons. He has 2 grandsons. My step-grandchildren, I call them grandchildren, who were injured. One's 16 and got ITP. Idiopathic thrombocytopenia. I had to spell that for the judge.
Can you imagine having Dr. Judy as the grandmother to your children? I couldn't think of a better granny in a million years. But I do know from first-hand experience that it's actually really painful and hurtful when a member of your family and all the work you do, you
Yeah.
put your life on
Yeah.
the line, and
Yeah.
it's like it almost, and this is selfish because it's now becoming about me, but just a second, it's almost, I can't describe it. It's like almost the
Yeah.
worst thing that can
Yeah.
happen is that your flesh and blood, or not even that, the people you love so much,
Yeah. And you can't
just say,
protect them.
F you,
Yeah.
I'm vaccinating with Gardasil.
And they basically said, well, Judy, you shouldn't have taken the notebooks. I didn't. You know, and by the way, they belonged to me, but I didn't take them. It was a setup. They had so much to lose. And they paid off all the people just like they did the nurses and doctors in the 30s in Los Angeles. They pay them all off. They give them grants. How does the government pay off scientists? Oh, they give them great big, you know how much Ian Lipkin got right after the Lipkin study was published? $32 million grant. $32 million, you know. He's Mr. Big, and I saw it over and over again in vaccine court. The so-called exports, we call them whores, they just pay them off. They just give them the grants, and, you know, they're whores.
No,
you know?
you know, they're putting greed before human life.
That's right. And it's about time we put the health care, the health. You know, it's called public health, not public wealth. What we are right now is public wealth. For the CDC, the FDA, I mean, the blood supply was contaminated. I found that and reported it in March 29, 2011. And now there's a company called Cirrus in Northern California who, along with all the people who kept this little secret, is making a fortune cleaning up the blood supply. Oh, so quietly. Did you see that on the news? Well, why do you need to clean it up, folks? You know, when they announced this test to clean up Ebola, December 1st, 2014, the FDA oh so quietly proved this test that I showed in 2011 would in fact clean up the contaminated blood supply,
How
not
far-
only from all the XMRVs, but from HTLV and HIV. It'll do Zika too. No problem, folks. We don't need to test for it. Just use this and clean it all up.
How far
But-
after your test?
And it was 3 years.
3 years?
3 years after I was jailed that they came out with this thing, and we proved it all, and I showed it. I have all the slides.
And what's the name of that company?
Cirrus, C-E-R-U-S, and they're making a fortune. And so is Michael Bush, who heads up the Blood System Research Institute and was perfectly well in on this. So they're all just, you know, and they got big grants, and they've got big collaborative agreements, and Cirrus is here at the CDC, and now they're all getting the money to do the Zika test. You don't need to test. The Cirrus system will clean it up. It's an RNA virus, folks. The methodology cleans up everything. So it's just a boondoggle, and Big Pharma's paying themselves. And Ebola was a boondoggle. It's just they just keep running it around. You know, viruses that have lived with humans for millennia. And the humans know how to cook the meat. And the humans know what not to eat, what makes them sick, what kills them. They don't just jump out of species into other species overnight. You know, something changes them. Well, they're changed in our laboratories. And that was the real, oh my God, of what we realized. Is that by crippling the immune systems of our mice, we're creating all these diseases. Well, we're crippling the immune systems of our humans, and they're the same diseases. Cancer, breast cancer in a 12-year-old. I watched that on, I think it was the Today Show, about 6 months ago. It came on, and they're interviewing, oh, poor you know, little kid, she's got one of these rare, aggressive breast cancers, and she's 12 years old. And mom and dad are in their early 40s, and they both had cancer. One lymphoma, one something else. And so you ask me what caused it? It's the retroviruses, folks. And they pass down generation to generation. They cripple our methylation machinery because they become part of your genome. And they jump in and out. And they don't have to be infectious. They're just your own personal little storm. And so they don't have to make a particle. Most of the HIV particles are not infectious. So it was actually ramping up the proteins and being exposed to the proteins, which was crippling the immune systems and things like that. And sure, HIV replicated like mad, just like the lab variant of XMRV. So that never was what we pulled out of the humans, but there are many, many, many strains. And that's what we learned. And we didn't sequence it, so, you know, it was our collaborator who was also paid off. So all our collaborator said was, you know, and everybody just kind of goes away, and nobody said a single word about this book. You know, every word of it's true. And sorry, that's Pam. That's my ride.
Do you want to get that?
No, it's all right.
Just one question people are asking is, do you actually know how to heal from all of this?
Yes. We know how to heal. That's why the good news. I'm sorry I didn't finish answering the question. What happened to HIV? They're fine. We know how to treat them. We know how to suppress the right parts of their immune system. We vaccinate them differently and protect them from diseases which they're susceptible to because they're immune compromised. We know how to vaccinate. We know how to treat. What the big burst about this immune therapy? We know how to do stem cells. We know how to teach the immune system to redirect the immune system to see these things and to fix. That's why the good news is we fixed AIDS. After the quilt on the Capitol lawn, after the protests at the scientific meetings, after ACT UP, after Magic Johnson, 1991. November 7th, 1991 was when Magic Johnson realized he seroconverted to HIV, which meant he was exposed. So we changed the paradigm right then. And he got treated right away instead of getting so sick. Get treated right away. Prevent another injection. You know, how many of these kids go in when something happened and you can fix it? Oh, okay. And we can test for it. We can do in saliva the genetics of the 10 or 15 most important gene pathways of a susceptible individual. But they're not going to do that because then all the injured, you know, I have a slide that I'll show tomorrow. And it says federal officials are worried about what happens if XMRV works out. What do you mean works out? And that was right after the first and last XMRV workshop at NIH, where we showed all the injuries, where we showed the kids, where we showed the autism. I've still got the book, and it's that's a chapter in the book. So you see, we walk through what happened between the time we recognized this in 2006. We didn't know it was a retrovirus. We didn't go looking at a retrovirus. We looked at a compromised immune system. So we have all those tests. You don't have to test for these things. Fix the immune system. That's what we do in cancer. That's what we did in AIDS. That's what we do in HTLV1 associated cancer and myelopathy. We know how to do this. And we spent 40 years doing it. Make these drugs available. Do the clinical trials now and fix these kids' immune systems. We can do it. Simple.
Yeah, you can ask another question.
Okay, I have one more question for you. Do you think anything positive has come out of the vaccine program? Like, I think a lot of people think perhaps smallpox, even though it did do damage, but maybe in the end that was a greater good situation as described. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say, you know, the polio, the way it used to be, and the smallpox are certainly, I mean, whole countries were saved because one army in World War I had vaccines and others didn't. So yes, then. But we're not talking about the same thing. The polio now isn't the same thing. We're injecting it with 3 other antigens and 3 other subunits. So yes, of course, there are devastating diseases that we did eradicate with vaccines. And one of them, you know, would be diphtheria. And diphtheria, I mean, well, I don't know if cleaning up the water and things like, you know, with the fact that we're not agrarian anymore, we don't have horse shit everywhere, and things like that makes a difference. I better answer. See? Watching. So, yes, good comes out of it. Hi, Pam. We're on the bus.
Oh,
So I'm gonna run into Whole
We'll come home
Foods.
real soon.
People have found us, so they're outside. And we have one story outside. I'm going to run and get everybody lunch. Catherine and I are going to run and get
Okay.
everybody
Well,
lunch.
we'll certainly come back.
we'll
Certainly come back. Okay.
What
be
can I
here
do?
soon.
You know the
Okay,
kind of
bye.
food I like. Lots of
Yes, we're going to get
So, yes,
chicken for
you know,
Polly.
smallpox.
chicken,
Yes,
mashed potato.
polio, because with polio,
Oh, sorry.
the benefit far outweighed the risk. Yes, there's a post-polio syndrome where people have issues, but the benefit and that iron lung, but what we're seeing these days is the fabricated iron lung. We're seeing the little heads, you know, the lies, and we're not showing the macrocephaly, we're showing the microcephaly, and so it's this fear thing, you know, but these diseases, you know, tetanus is not a communicable disease. So why are you giving an infant a tetanus shot? Why are you giving them diphtheria when we haven't had a case of diphtheria in this country in a decade? Why? There's no reason. There's no risk. So
One second.
Yeah.
I know you've got the merch card. Does anyone?
you do.
I do?
Yeah.
Why would I have it?
It's in your...
Just hold that a second, Josh.
Oh, yeah, that's the last I heard of it.
Sorry, one
Tetanus
second.
is not a communicable.
I think sometimes that's a fault.
Tetanus is not a it's step on a rusty nail. It's not a communicable disease. Neither is cervical cancer, by the way. So why are we mandating Gardasil for every
why?
9 to 26-year-old on the planet? On the planet,
Yeah, anything.
cervical cancer is not communicable, and 10% of these kids are getting these people being injected with that Gardasil and Cervex are getting very serious injury. 10%. Far more than the incidence of cervical cancer, and Dr. Suzanne Humphreys and I would both argue that it was the pap smear that made the incidence, and Marcella Piper Terry that made the incidence of that disease go down. The vaccine has nothing to do with it. There are hundreds of strains of human papillomavirus. 3 or 4 of them have oncogenes. The oncogenes don't cause cancer. HPV doesn't cause cancer. And they just make this stuff up. Zika doesn't cause this microcephaly. Everything else in the perfect storm does. And by the way, those Brazilian women were vaccinated when they were pregnant. Taking a pregnant woman is immune suppressed. To vaccinate a pregnant woman who's immune suppressed and push her immune system in a way it can't go is ridiculous. I can't even believe the doctors that are sitting there saying, "Oh, we're going to vaccinate a pregnant woman." What are you thinking? She can't do an immune response, and it's going directly to that fetus. And I remember how hard we worked to learn all about HIV and to protect the fetus from getting infected. And yet we're injecting this stuff. It's crazy, and aluminum and mercury. It's just in formaldehyde and polysorbate 80, which is a detergent which chews up, literally dissolves the blood-brain barrier, literally dissolves the gut. That's why all this projectile vomiting. That's why all of this stuff. It's just, for any scientist, if anybody sat, and so like you said earlier, they're doing other things. It's like law. My criminal lawyer couldn't do anything with my bankruptcy and vice versa. Or my civil lawyer can't, because they don't know that fine-tuned aspect of law. So we did AIDS and cancer. And had we not done what I've done my whole life, which is talk to the patients. So one of my crimes was she talks to the patients. So, she's a PhD. She can't talk to the patients. Why not? How can I do a study? So Hippo, where nobody gets to know and you participate without your identity being known, you can't follow a disease that way. We're hurting people by the way we're doing our clinical trials, because you have to look at the whole family. You have to look at the environment. You have to look at what dad does for a living. How many of these kids, their parents are healthcare professionals. They're bringing the stuff home. They're bringing the stuff home, just like my colleagues and my lab workers, just like the chapter 5 of our book, the first outbreaks of these diseases in Los Angeles, in this country anyway.
What do you do now? How do you make a living? Are you okay?
No, they took everything away from
Right,
me.
so
but
ordering your book is what everybody wants to do anyway, so that's a done deal. How do you survive?
Well, my husband has Social Security and a retirement, and we don't own a car. We can't own anything. I'm in full-on Chapter 7 bankruptcy. We can't own anything worth more than $5,000. So they took everything away from us, and I count on a lot of people will drop me envelopes with money in it. A lot of people will pay a PayPal and say, support Dr. Judy. A dear friend runs a Facebook. By law, I couldn't do Facebook. The permanent injunction. I was silenced for 5 years. I couldn't do under threat of going back to jail. If I violated the injunction or violated the writ of this kangaroo court, which is what it was. And this judge was found to be bought and paid for. And yet, I still don't get a hearing, and I still don't get my house back, my boats back. We had 2 homes, 3 homes, 2 boats. We didn't need all of that, so we live in a 700 square foot place. It's and it costs about $700 a month. So that's how.
Do you regret ever coming out and telling everyone? Do you regret anything you've done?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know. I've got a gift that most people don't get in their lives. I know exactly why God put me on this earth. And my stepfather knew it, even though he didn't survive to see it, because a long time ago when he used to say Judy's mouth gets Judy's body in trouble. I wasn't supposed to be in the lab. I was supposed to be talking. So
Who said that to you?
my stepfather.
A bit like my dad saying, think before you speak.
Yeah, Judy's mouth gets Judy's body in trouble.
Dr. Judy,
Uh-huh.
what is your advice to maybe somebody that's a potential whistleblower or is in the know or has information that could change this and stop the murder of the brains and babies of this world? What do you say, what advice do you give them about what you've been through and what they should do?
Protect themselves from the beginning. Don't trust anyone in the federal government. Make as many copies of the data. Scientists have hard copies in safe deposit box. Tell your story. Write the book. I'm hiding in plain sight. They can kill me now, but everybody knows who did it. So what are you going to do? You know, I don't have to worry about accidents. I still am followed now and again. The FBI show up. But
How do you know you're followed?
the FBI show up outside the door.
They literally show up.
They literally show up.
And what are they, in dark cars like the military?
Yeah, well, in the case that I'm talking about right now, we rented an apartment, and there was apartment for rent, and so they were standing under my window, and my voice is quite distinct, and as you can see, I talk quite loudly, and I was talking on the phone, and I get upset about this, and they're literally standing under my window, and the landlord comes out, and he knows the story. He read the book, he loves it, he listens to George Norrie, and I was on that radio show a while ago. He comes out, and he says, "What's your business here?" And the guy shows a badge, and he said, "You get off this property. You either want to rent that apartment or you get out of here." And they leave. And the FBI they're not going to do anything. I handed them a hard drive with hundreds and thousands of files of documents, handed them, copied the hard drive.
So what are they
been
doing
talking
now?
to
They're
them,
just trying to
nothing.
threaten you?
They're just covering it up.
Warning
Nothing.
you that they're there?
Oh, it's
watching you?
a scare tactic, yeah. We got you. You know, we can kill you. You know, I've gained 20 pounds because I can't ride my bike. I used to ride my bike. I can't run. I can't go out alone. I don't keep the same routine. I buy the most expensive plane tickets because I don't announce where I'm going. And I didn't announce coming here. A friend picked
Do you
me
think
up.
they're tapping your phone?
Oh, sure. The people call and tell me that. In fact, I always talk to them. Hi, remember me? I'm not letting you off the hook. And you could say that, you know, they can't. It's all, and you know, the FBI has a real problem here because we can out Snowden. We've got all the evidence. We've got the quotes. I'm showing them, you know, the book shows, and there are hundreds of references. It looks like a fat book, folks, but most of it is proof. You know, most of it's just written like a suspense thriller. I used to call it my murder mystery, but I came out the other side. And there was a long time when I wasn't sure I would. I mean, I wasn't sure I wouldn't. I mean, because when you realize everything you believe in, when you realize there are no civil rights in the United States of America, when they can walk in your house, are you kidding me? You've been law-abiding. When you're forced to file bankruptcy and you watch them take everything your husband and you ever worked for, and watch them just take it, and you did nothing wrong and had a perfect credit score, it's actually liberating. And Andy said it once, and I can only echo it. It's liberating. I have nothing to lose. And I'm so much happier because now that I know the truth, I don't live in this hypocrisy. So I don't have to.
Dr. Suzanne says the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's very liberating.
It's very liberating. It's
and
amazing.
you're on the right side of history.
And you know, it's really, I always tell people it's really not about me, and it's really not. And then the reason why we told the story, it took Ken Tech and Lively a long time. And he said, you know, my daughter, I want to have a conversation with her. Once in my life, I want to talk to my daughter. And I said, okay, Ken, let's write, you know, because we can fix this. But right now, he's fighting to get her the drugs she should get, which are the HIV/AIDS drugs. These are the drugs that are healing people. Around the world, there are people who have had brave doctors say, you know what Judy Mikovits said makes sense, because you know what? HPV is a pararetrovirus, so that reverse transcriptase could be messing up your genome. And when they stop the aberrant transcription of your genes, the patients start getting well. Are they cured? No, because we've got to figure out what started the problem and where it is in the body, because every cell is different. And but they're a lot better off. They're not in bed. Andrea Whittemore's just fine. She's been taking that drug, and you get it at $25 thanks to the AIDS patient. Can you imagine $25 a month to treat some of these kids? Can you imagine medical marijuana? The good cannabinoid fats that can in fact help them be pain-free, that can help them stop 20 seizures a day. You know, why not? Why not? The benefit far outweighs the risk. And in fact, there's a movement in our country, the right to try. We all have a right to die, but this FDA holds these drugs. Why not? Why can't that doctor say, you know what? Here's the risk of taking this antiretroviral. We know what it can do to your kidneys or your liver, and I'm going to try to protect you like we did the AIDS patients, because we learned. I always point, and Magic Johnson's written in my book, I autographed one and sent it to him. I don't know if anybody ever gave it to him, but I wrote it in there for a reason, because this was the discussion at my PhD defense, which was November 14th to 1991, 25 years ago, a month from now. And what they said was, a week ago, Magic Johnson declared he was seropositive. Based on your thesis, will he or will he not die of AIDS? Well, I was absolutely right, still am. So, and I know it, and I walked through the mechanisms of infection. And at the time, they said, "Oh, you're an idiot. The macrophage doesn't get infected; only the T cell gets infected." So this whole censorship, this whole who owns our scientific journals, this whole, science. When you see what Science, the journal, and Nature, when you see how they corrupted, the journalist for Science, the writer, he knows he put a fabricated mugshot in the journal. He knows. And we got him in an email. And he's like, no. The judge said you can't have that picture. There is no benefit. While I'm standing there after 5 days in jail, I stink like a pig. I haven't had a shower. My hair looks horrible. I'm standing there in shackles. And he wants to take a picture. And thank God the judge in Ventura, California said no. This woman is innocent until proven guilty of anything, and I see no value to Science to taking a picture of her like that and putting it in the #1 scientific journal in the world. So he couldn't do that. So what did he do? They forced me to go to Nevada under threat of arrest, and they just fabricated one in Nevada. I didn't even have to take my pants off. They just wanted their picture for the journal, and they got it. There's nothing legal about it, and yet we know that because they shoot innocent people in the back every day.
If you could pick 5 people, and they said, okay, here's the thing, we're going to give you 5 people, the worst 5, at the deep heart of all of this, to put in jail. Which 5 would you pick? You can pick 5 people to put in jail that are responsible for all of this. Which 5 would you choose?
Tony Fauci, Ian Lipkin, Frieden, Julie Gerberding, and I don't know the names of the people at Merck, but of the government end of it.
Can we have Colleen Boyle and Paul Offit, please?
Yeah, sure. Paul Offit, Colleen Boyle, yeah. Those were just people that never crossed my path. But I know what... See, the bigger problem is Tony Fauci. Notice how he never says anything?
Explain who he is.
Tony Fauci, Anthony Fauci, is the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. He's affectionately called the AIDS czar. So when HIV came in, I could tell great stories about that, but I'll let Frank. They're his stories. He said, I want to be on the Tonight Show. And so he's run that institute since the early 80s. He's been the director, and he's the gatekeeper of what is called an infectious disease. And so when you don't consider PANS, pandas, chronic Lyme, ME/CFS, and the encephalopathy in vaccine-injured kids, which is what PANS and pandas cause, the immune dysfunction, when you don't call these things allergy or infectious disease, and you take, in this country, at one time, we paid $6,000 a year per AIDS patient for research on them, and we still do it, and it's probably even more. All they talk about is cure AIDS, cure AIDS, cure AIDS. Well, you know why they want to cure HIV/AIDS? Because they know they're causing this, and they're just like with Cirrus in the blood supply, they're paying them back. So Tony Fauci and Francis Collins is a puppet, and Harold Varmus and
Explain Francis Collins. Explain these people so we know.
Francis Collins is the head of the National Institute of Health, and he's basically just a puppet. He just, I mean, they just said, you know, here you go. And he's the one that said after he saw our data, September 6th and 7th, 2010, he said, do a large study. You need to do a large study, because he asked me one question: where'd you get your controls? The blood supply of London. See, London's in it all too. So that's why it's really hard to pick 5 people, because you can round up about 30 criminals. But when they go down, you know, when we shackle up that Dr. Ian Lipkin, the great debunker, and Dr. Tony Fauci, how many people have they killed? When we shackle them up and we put them away, that's going to send free up scientists everywhere. The scientists are afraid. I have said so many, I can't help you, Judy. I got to take care of my family. And I know Andy Wakefield feels the same way. I got a sick kid. Scientists' kids are getting sick. I got a sick kid. Sorry, I can't help you. You know, so they can do any research as long as they don't say retrovirus. You know, they can do
What
anything
exactly
else.
are the scientists afraid of?
Having what happened to me. Do you want to lose your whole life? Do you want to get killed?
Over,
How many doctors
do I
are
want
dead?
to do that over a child being killed or maimed? Absolutely, it's the right thing to do. You take that step like you did. There is no
I agree.
excuse.
There
I
is
don't.
no
I don't
excuse.
even throw them anything. There is no excuse.
There
to
is no
not
excuse.
Do what you're doing.
But a lot of them have injured kids, and they have nobody to take care of them if they die or lose their money. So a lot of them are doing it just like my
Injured kids
institute.
because of
The vaccines.
the vaccines.
That's
so
right.
Therefore, you've got to do it for your child if you're not doing it for anything else. in
Well,
their
but if
name.
you lose your job, how do you take care of your child?
There are ways. There's
There-
always
yeah.
a way around everything. You
Yeah.
get on your knees and you pray.
I agree. We get on our knees and we pray. But you know, it's just such a. I don't even know what it's a culture. I mean, we were talking this morning. Why can't we have this conversation without you attacking me? You know, I was at a restaurant and people turning the message. I was at the bar at LAX yesterday, and a young man said, "Well, I've seen these diseases. You know, I'm working in Thailand. Well, and my kids are all vaccinated, and if not, they'd have died of these diseases." Well, that's Thailand. That's not the United States.
Do you think mandatory vaccines nationwide are going to? Are we going to ever get? Do you think we're going to get to that?
I'm hoping. Everywhere I go, I said, "Stop everything. Stop everything. Not one more vaccine."
See,
until
Andy
we figure
says,
this
Andy
out.
Wakefield says, and I can't quote him exactly because my memory is absolutely hopeless. But he said, if CDC said, "Oh, righty, you're right, we're wrong, we're going to close down, there's going to be no more vaccines," he says we've got a problem if we just suddenly stop vaccinating.
Well, we've got a problem because these things have spread all this stuff back around.
There's no natural immunity.
There's no natural immunity. But I think we can help people. That's what we do. We look at how these things upset the immune system, and that's what we're doing in cancer. We have immune therapy in cancer. Why not just funnel everything over to immune therapy in cancer? Why not? That's how you make an immune system strong.
If you were at the CDC and you were a baddie, and you're not the baddie. Say there's someone at the CDC as a baddie, and they say, "Okay, Dr. Judy, can you just come in through the back door and tell us how we get out of this? How would you recommend they get out?" Let's throw them a lifeline and say, "Okay, all right, you're in a really difficult situation. You've murdered millions of children worldwide, and blah 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 blah. So let's help you get out." What would your escape route for them be, so that everything works out well?
Stop anything under 3. Since the immune systems, blame the immune system. Not
Have you
being
met Holly over there?
Stop.
She died. She's 7 years old. So no, I mean,
Right.
I don't buy the. I mean, I get under 3.
Well, but how much
they're
did she
dying
get
over.
before she was 7?
Right, but
Right.
okay. Stop everything under
Yeah,
3.
and then start doing the diagnostics for who's at risk. We know the pathways. We can do it in saliva, just like we did phenylketonuria, where we stick the heel of the infant the day they're born. Stick the heel. Let's do the stick the heel. We have the technologies. Let's find out who's susceptible and protect them. And then let's drop the number by 90%. Let's go back pre-1986. Because, of course, a lot of people, my nephews, my nieces, they're basically fine. Does that mean some things didn't happen to compromise them? But you could say the benefit outweighed the risk. So stop the most vulnerable population. Stop injecting Alzheimer's patients with a flu vaccine. What are you afraid of? They're going to put them out of their misery because they're going to catch the flu and die. Treat with Tamiflu. Treat with Famvir. Treat with medications and natural products. Strengthen the immune system. We know how to do it. That's what we call immune therapy. Get on the stand up to cancer. We can do it. Look at that. Look at immune therapy. Look at all the money that went this way, and we're really understanding the immune system. They've already created their victims. They've already created their lab rats. That's all the sick people. Now let's stop creating it, admit we made a mistake and we don't know everything, and the science isn't settled, and stop with the most vulnerable people. And then start treating the sickest people right now with antiretroviral therapy, with natural product chemistry therapy. Let's start using wisely natural products and supplements. Let's take it out of the hands. The FDA is broken. It's just as broken as the CDC. I've been working on a natural product drug combination therapy for more than 12 years. And the company spent $45 million in counting on it, and it's still not through the FDA. Well, you have to pay off the FDA to get them to look at your drug. So nobody gets to, so to get in line, how many drugs? So, take the therapies like the Truth About Cancer, where I'm going later this weekend. Let's look at all of those doctors who are showing you. I'm going to show you all of the things. So if they came in the back door, I'd say, this is what I would do. In fact, Kent Heckenlively said I should just simply run the NIH. And this is what we should do. And I know we can do it, but that's why I use the AIDS example. I never thought that viruses killing people were dropping like flies. And we know who the most susceptible were. And now we know there's a whole population who lives just fine with tons of HIV. And now we know the reason why they live just fine with HIV, because they had a deletion in something called CCR5, so it didn't get into their macrophages. So that's why we learned the macrophages were more important to protecting. So all of these drugs, the movie with McConaughey that won the award, Dallas Buyers Club. That drug called Peptide T at the time, Candace Pert. So we worked with Candace Pert in the 80s, and we developed Peptide T in Frank Rossetti's lab with Candace Pert and her husband, Dr. Mike Ruff. And we developed that. Why can't these people get these drugs that would change their lives? Because it'll prove what caused it. And see, this is what they're afraid of. They can't afford everybody to get on disability, to get paid, to get free treatment, to get, just like we got HIV/AIDS. HIV/AIDS is 1 million people in this country. This is 20 million. 6% of the U.S. is damaged and at risk of developing all of these diseases. And some are dead. We're killing the disease, as you know, the SIDS. They're
asking me to ask you about the vitamin K. It's coming up in
horrific. Tons of aluminum. You don't need vitamin K. You don't need anything at birth. Let the natural processes take hold. That vitamin K is loaded, I think, with polysorbate 80, that shot, and I think some aluminum as well. There is no shot you can give a newborn. Rogam? Pregnant women?
It's so difficult, that one, because I was talking to Dr. Suzanne about it.
Then you develop immunity against the fetus, and you lose the fetus. There are safer ways to do things, and you can protect the immune system. That's why that chapter's part of our book.
Can't wait for this
because
book,
we
guys.
were able to vaccinate the AIDS patients safely. We do vaccinate them. We do protect them from the most dangerous things. But that's what we have to do. One size doesn't fit all. And you cannot. Paul Offit is a lunatic. I'll line up those 10,000. You can't inject 10,000
I want a
things.
T-shirt with Paul Offit's a lunatic written on it.
It's crazy.
How is he allowed to carry on? How, the conflict of interest with that
How
man
are any of these
is
people
unreal.
allowed
I know, but let's just talk about
carry on?
him for a second. I don't understand.
Yeah, I can't answer that. I mean, I don't understand. But I don't understand a lot of things. I don't understand how this happened.
We, as the people, we have to take control.
We do. We the people. And we vote with our pocketbook.
Right.
Do not go to a doctor. Go to the ones who are honest. support honest research, support honest businesses, support businesses that are willing to look into this, support businesses that are willing to prescribe the right drugs, where the benefits of, sure, there are risks to everything, but those vaccines, they're little Pez dispensers of candy. We just, everything. There's a risk to aspirin. 100,000 people a year die of aspirin injury to their gut, bleeding. But we can still take a low dose aspirin and prevent some people from having heart attacks. But you get to decide that, and your doctor gets to do the medicine. Put the medicine back in doctors. Take it out of healthcare. The health insurance is just as big a part of the fraud. It's all this big network of fraud, and they perpetrate it among each other, and they get away with it because nobody wants to end up dead or like me.
If you personally have a rip-roaring headache, one of those really bad ones, do you take painkillers or just what do you do?
I take a leave. Like it. Yeah,
Okay.
it works for me. Yeah. I love Celebrex, the drug. Celebrex, the drug, is not Vioxx, the drug. Celebrex had
What is that? I don't know.
It's the drug where the platelet what was Vioxx, it was a painkiller, and we developed it in cancer. It's a COX-2 inhibitor. Well, the whole Vioxx nightmare that Brandy Vaughn talks about, and all of that, where they knew it was killing people and causing these other things, but there was too much money involved, they just paid off the victim. Well, Vioxx, the drug, had a half-life of 12 hours, so they were giving it every 4 hours, and it was accumulating and doing more damage. Celebrex, the drug, was really relieving pain in cancer patients, and actually was a marvelous, in my opinion, part of a cancer drug therapy. And the benefits outweigh the risk if you're dying of cancer. So when you get to understand the 4-hour half-life meant you can give Celebrex safely as long as you give it once in the morning and not more than that. Because then it's all degraded by the time you need to understand the chemistry and the bioavailability. You can make good drugs. And so, I'd take Celebrex tomorrow if I got cancer.
That's
but
what
I can't
what
get
do you
it.
think? Would you have chemo?
No, absolutely not. It's because they're all developed in mouse. All these monoclonal antibodies, they're all contaminated with retroviruses. You're getting more cancers down the line. I have friends who have 5 different kinds of cancer. It's because we're causing them as we cure them, and we're creating an industry. So no, I wouldn't take chemo.
You are completely amazing. Everybody loves you so much. I really genuinely do wish there was somewhere we could all go, all the people that were like-minded, and live a life without this.
Yeah. Well, I really believe the day is coming that some people who can are going to step up and say, I'll help.
Thank God. because we
And some
need
of them
them.
may already have and talk to me.
I've been on the road since the 1st of April
Right.
with this, and I'm trying to stay calm.
Yeah.
But the stories and the pain and the heartbreak,
Yeah,
and
it's-
it's getting to the point where I'm wondering whether, if I'm not careful, I may not be the best advocate, because it makes you angry. You just get very angry.
I have to admit, last night when I got here, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock. I missed the Dodger national game. I'm a baseball fan. Everybody knows that. And I've missed so much of my life. And I don't have any children. I got married. My whole life is this. And when I learned what you're learning with HIV, because I saw the bias against the victims. And then when I realized the victims it was not their own behavior, but in fact, the government that made it worse, and spread it to the undesirables through their HBV, which is a retrovirus. So even if they harbored it, they're spinning it out of control. You can harbor it and not spin it out of control. That's the whole point. And I had friends, and I've lost so many friends to cancer. So and I refuse to let my heart get hardened. I just can't do it. I just keep. And last night I was just talking to one of those friends, and I said, you know what, I can't do this too much longer. We were here last year, and here the year before, and here, there, and I'm going here, there, and everywhere at my own expense. and you know.
I think there's people on Periscope saying they're going to help you.
Yeah, and so it's just, you know, it's just how long do you take it? And then, you know, my friend usually prays for me at night because she's got like a direct line to Jesus, so it's really good. But and I don't. And so and she did, you know, and just last night I just was so discouraged. I thought, how can I get up and be positive? And then all these people out here today, and then even Fox News, you know, nobody cares. Why doesn't the news care? Why do you care about 400 kids with little heads in Brazil and you don't care about 20 million Americans with all of these devastating diseases? When you see these called Lyme patients, when you see these called CFS patients, when you see how they suffer, it's beyond human comprehension. And then they kill themselves and you lose another friend. Yeah. It's incredibly painful. And in fact, it's interesting because that's what Ian Lipkin said to me June 24, 2011, when he came to the Institute there and he saw the patients. And he said, these aren't CFS patients. And I said, these are our ME. This is myalgic encephalomyelitis. This isn't tired people. This isn't, oh yeah, ha, I'm tired too. This is wheelchairs. This is, if they come out the house to spend 3 hours with me, they're going to be down for a week. And they're going to be suffering and in pain for a week.
Next year we're having a Vaxxed Summit, and we haven't set a date because we're trying to make sure it's somewhat time that we can get the real people there, and we would love.
I'll leave my next year calendar open.
We would love you to be part of,
I would love
that.
To.
And,
I would love to.
Now, is there a funding page where people can donate to you? Do you have anything like that?
There is a Support Dr. Judy Facebook.
Is it called Support Dr. Judy on Facebook?
And so that has a PayPal.
And that has a PayPal. So those that can, please. I mean, I know we're preaching to the
well,
people
and
with
so
nothing,
many
but
have. I do want to say that. Thank you all. I'll get $10 here. I'll get $20 here. And one day I didn't have the $10, and all of a sudden I got one, and I needed it to pay the bill. So I just want to thank. And it's thousands of people.
Right, just before we go any further, I'm getting loads of messages on what you would like for lunch. They're in Whole Foods right now, and they're waiting to hear. Would you like? I'm having chicken and mashed potato because that's what I eat all the time. What would you like?
Just something protein. Just I don't want anything but pure protein.
Pure protein, people. Oh, I love a boiled egg.
Boiled egg, a piece of cheese.
We love boiled eggs, cheese.
Yeah.
And no one's asked you what you want. What would you like? Josh is in there. He knows your. He knows.
Yeah, Josh knows me. So.
All right, so that's that. Now, so we've got you for the summit. We're going to work out a date. So we want Dr. Brian Hooker. We're not Brian Hooker. We need Dr. Suzanne, who's going to be in New Zealand. So we have to get her back.
Yep.
But we definitely want these people, and this is, I think, what it's going to be. It's going to be about us all joining together. And
from all of the diseases, I'll bring some of the cancer. I'll bring some of the chronic Lyme. I'll bring the good. You know, we'll bring. You know, they're all good. They're just their heads are down right now. So they're not denying me, and they're not denying us. It's just that they can't afford. You know, the patients need somebody to treat them, and they need them to be alive.
Is this the
page?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what will happen with this interview, everybody?
That's my picture when I don't wear my hat.
We will, what am I talking about now? Oh yes, this will be taken out and will go out on Facebook and we will get Dr. Judy out. I'll speak to Anu and Del and everybody about how we can get regulars with Dr. Judy. We'd love to do that. Everyone literally loves you. I mean, I don't know if you have Periscope, but if you watch this back, you would be guys. I'm going to show her the hearts.
It's really funny.
She has never seen this before. Let me show you. Okay, there you go. See those hearts there?
Oh, that's sweet.
They're coming in for you, and they've been pretty much coming in throughout the whole of your interview. So they just puff up those hearts for you.
That's sweet.
So you can watch.
Yeah,
that
I haven't.
back.
I'm kind of a computer idiot.
And they're saying love you, love you, love you, love you. So you're getting a lot of that.
I'm also an identical twin, and I don't like to watch myself.
You're an
talk.
identical twin.
Yeah.
Where is your twin?
Well, I don't like to say. Puts her.
No, quite right. But does she look just like you? Huh?
Pretty similar.
Stopped.
Yeah,
So,
pretty similar.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes. In fact, all the way back in the 80s when she had to get a top secret clearance, they investigated me. Wow, that's great.
It's just absolute. They're coming in and coming in and coming in. So we'll have to. Anu actually could set you up so that you could do that. So your sister's okay, is she?
Oh, she's wonderful. She's even angrier than I am, so you're lucky you got the kind one. Ask her 3 sons. It's like, Aunt Judy, don't tell Mom, she'll kill me.
Well, Anu's going to set Dr.
She's
Judy up
tough.
on Periscope, so she's going to be able to see us back and see all the hearts that you're giving her and the love. We're going to get some lunch for you, give you a break if we get the opportunity. So when are you going down to the Truth About Cancer?
Tomorrow at 6.
All right, so
I
you'll
fly
see
out tomorrow at 6.
Andy's down there, Dr. Wakefield's down there.
Oh, good.
And my daughter Bella's with him.
Oh, good. I hope they'll
So-
stay through Sunday. I was a little worried if I was on Sunday, I'd miss some of the fun, but
No, don't worry, they're going to stay there with you.
In fact, that's
actually,
what
no,
I-
wait a minute, Bella's flying in tomorrow, but Andy...
that's what I said to my friend yesterday on the phone when I was so discouraged. I said, I'm a cancer research scientist. I just want to go back to a meeting where people are thanking you for your work and people are so, you appreciate what you do, how we treat cancer patients in this country, and with their little ribbons and their this and their that, and we treat everybody else like they're crazy or they're blooming idiots because you all know nothing can happen bad to you from a vaccine or the contaminated blood supply.
Alright, before I go, this person's going on and on about the shingles vaccine. I get it, I hear you, please ask about the shingles. I get you, I've asked her.
Don't
Okay.
do it. Don't do it. If you have had chicken pox, you already have the virus in your body. In the cells, the nerves is where it comes out. If you use that vaccine with the aluminum, with all the stuff that's in it, you're going to literally allow the immune system's going to go over here and try to do something with that, and the chicken pox virus that is actually in your neurons are just going to come out, and it's literally making you sick because these things in these vaccines are compromising your immune system. A vaccine is supposed to prevent infection. You can't prevent shingles if you're already infected any other way than strengthening your immune system. Get good supplements, get good food, get a strong T cell and NK cell response. These patients know what those are, and we know how to do that with Ganoderma, with reishi mushrooms, with various things. We know how to do it. Strengthen your immune system. My mom asked me the very same question. Do not get it.
Thank you for that. Somebody just said they can't find the PayPal on that Facebook.
Oh really? Here, let me
I don't know.
tell you what. We're gonna blast it on our stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so pay attention to the We Are Vaxxed Facebook page. We will make sure that the appropriate links to Dr. Judy Mediquit's stuff is all there, so you'll be fine.
It might be on plaguethebook.com.
Plaguethebook.com.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Dr. Judy.
Oh,
I don't know
you're
about
very
you, but
welcome.
I'm so hungry. I feel like I'm actually going to pass out. So we've
You're a
got
true
to.
hero,
I'm
man.
actually
I didn't
shivering
eat-
you.
I didn't
Yeah, I'm a little shaky right now.
I didn't eat yesterday except for peanuts on the plane, at Southwest.
Yeah, no, that's not
Okay,
good. Okay,
that's-
it's time to eat.
yeah.
Let's go and eat.
We
Guys,
need
we
to-
love you. Everybody is so grateful to you. They
Thank
love
you,
you,
thank
and
you,
we all love
Polly.
everyone. It's all good.
I appreciate them all, and they know it. So.
All right, fantastic. Here we go.